Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for a film from John McTiernan, actually his first ever directed movie. The guy who the next year after this movie in '87 brought us Predator. The year after that in '88 he brought us Die Hard. A few years later he brought us The Hunt for Red October. A lot of films that most people like myself consider classics of cinema, movies, really good flicks pretty much. John McTiernan is a household name basically. And he's great. Really good, very talented director. But once upon a time, his first ever directorial debut, well, I guess that's your first ever, was a film called Nomads. And I saw this on Shudder. It is from '86. And I think it is such a fucking turd. It is truly boring. Truly, truly boring. Like, I don't really know how to explain it otherwise. It has no coherency to it. It has such a messy, scrambled plot for an hour and a half that you have to watch all this shit taking place so quickly, but not at the same time. Like, it feels like there's a lot more that should happen in this film, but there's really not much happening at all. It's very dry. There's a lot of things that I will make fun of in this review for this movie because of how truly awful it was. I hated this shit. It's got like a couple of good little things here and there that are okay, but most of it sucks. Like 95% of this film is horrible, and I would never recommend this to anybody. I don't know how it has such a high rating on IMDb at like a 5.3 out of 10, whatever they gave it, typically as the audience score average. I don't get it. I don't understand what people are talking about. So essentially we have a lady who works in a hospital. I don't know her name, she's barely in the film, but she has an encounter with a patient who's kind of going crazy. He is played by Pierce Brosnan. He's speaking in another language. And at first I didn't recognize what it was, but I'll get to that in a little bit. And he dies in the hospital. After sort of semi-panic attacking her, which was weird. And she has this weird thing where she starts seeing visions and crazy shit. She's not really sure why, neither are we. And she kind of follows his path, the guy who died, played by Pierce Brosnan once again. She follows through these visions what happened to him. She leaves the hospital and kind of escapes and kind of relives some of his memories of the last couple of days that he was alive. And she ends up like crossing paths with his wife and stuff. But I say all that to say this, we really don't focus on her. We focus on the vision aspect and watch a lot of this movie happen through Pierce Brosnan's life, his eyes, what's happening to him, those previous days leading up to his death at the hospital. That's most of this film. Pierce Brosnan is playing a man who he and his wife are from France, and they moved to the US, they recently got a house, and they have the worst, not so much the wife, but Pierce Brosnan, who I don't think is that good of an actor to begin with. I understand, he is James Bond, people love him, I don't fucking get it. I like him to an extent. I feel like it's one of those cases of he was a very, very handsome man who got a really great career out of that, but he ruined one of my favorite characters of all time. In anything, and that would be Stephen King's Bag of Bones character, Mike Noonan, who I love deeply. If you've read that book, you know how powerful in general you feel by the end of that book about Mike Noonan. He's a great character, one of King's best characters of all time. It's not like I hold a vendetta against the guy for ruining that. It's not really his fault. It's just a horrible movie. And he was horribly miscast for that film. But Pierce Brosnan being James Bond, a lot of people love him. I just don't click with the guy. I don't have any admiration for him. And here is a great example why. I don't understand how he has a career, frankly. But he in this film having a French accent, at first I thought he was Cuban. That's how good his French accent is in this movie. Does that sound like an insult? Well, it's my version of an insult. He sounds Cuban at first, and then it becomes this mixture of like a Cuban-Hispanic language type of thing mixed with a fucking French accent of some sort at the end of sentences. It's so awful, but the best thing about it that made me laugh out loud in this really dry, dull movie was when I got to hear Pierce Brosnan, a very handsome man, say to his wife, we. I got to hear him say that. It made me laugh really loud at lunchtime when I watched this in my car at work. Anyway, the movie, again, mainly focuses on Pierce Brosnan. If he's carrying most of the film, you would expect him to carry the film with a good performance, good anything, a script to give him something to do. I don't entirely blame him because the script sucks ass too, but he's not doing much better to really make it worthwhile, to make it fun to watch, to make his character worth caring about. There's just really not a whole lot going on. Now there is, in his neighborhood, some kind of black van that plays really loud heavy metal that flies up and down the road all the time. We assume it's a group of teenagers or something like that. And apparently they are a group of people known as the Nomads. by what Pierce Brosnan finds out over time. I don't want to talk about that too much, I don't want to spoil it too much, but eventually they put some graffiti on his garage door of this really nice house he lives in. And it kind of devolves more into, well, what are the Nomads? Are they human? What's up with these people? And I thought I was going to get one kind of movie when I was watching this, the first half hour or so, when I started hearing about the Nomads and what they might be and whatever. I thought I would get something really nice, and something I didn't expect to get with this movie, by the title, by the look of it, all of that. I didn't get shit. By the end of the movie, I didn't get anything. I didn't get anything that was worth me caring about after watching this over the course of like 2 days, because I just could not, even at work when I was watching this movie on break, could not for the life of me keep my eyes open. It just bored the shit out of me so often. And every once in a while, because of John McTiernan, who grew into the wonderful director we knew later on, not even a year later making things like Predator, for him to be an incredible talent, I can't sit here and deny you that there are a couple of moments that are fairly well shot for the film, that are fairly good moments that are trying to build some cool tension, and actually brought me in for some engagement. I will give the film that. I will also say, too, that as weak as everything else might be, aside from that little bit of good directing every once in a while, there is a phenomenal soundtrack for this film. A couple of times it's really just 2 or 3 songs that are played throughout the movie to really build some atmosphere, some tension. That soundtrack is too good for this horrible movie. I mean that. It's too good for this piece of shit movie that has nothing going for it, really. If you have not seen this film, at least take the time out to go listen to the soundtrack. It's really good if you can find it here on YouTube. I'd love to see what you have to say about that down in the comments, and not the movie, because the movie's horrible. I hope this will save you some time of not wasting your life for an hour and a half. An hour and a half on this turd. It was abysmal, dude. It is one of the worst things I've watched on Shudder so far. And I've seen a couple of duds, but I've seen some really good flicks that I would at least recommend to a lot of people from the Shudder app. It's a big reason why I'm such a fan of Shudder so far. The things they manage to carry, the things they kind of make, like VHS 99, I like those things. I have typically a very good fondness for them. But something like this that they didn't make, they had nothing to do with, but they brought it on just to have something to fill the space on their app, it's horrible. It's really, really bad. The previous film that I reviewed, that's a newer movie called Spoonful of Sugar, I would almost watch that again before I would watch this, and I wasn't even a fan of that one. So, with all that being said, have you seen Nomads? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'd love to hear what your thoughts and comments are down in the comment section down below. This movie that's a 1986 film that has no real 80s cheese to it, or feel to it, really, even in texture, the look of the areas that they film in, anything like that. Just the music. Just the music and the Pierce Brosnan haircut. That's it. That's all you got, 80s feel, texture-wise. All of these modern-day neon-slammed, colorized films that have the 80s put in such a neon way, not every movie was made like that back then. This is a great example of one, even if it is a low-budget piece of shit. Anyway, have you seen the film? What do you think about it? I'd love to hear what you have to say about Nomads in the comments section down below if you wasted your time on this. Yeah, let me know. Anyway, if I had to rate this film on a 5-star basis, again, a good soundtrack, really good soundtrack as a matter of fact, one of the better ones I've ever heard in my entire life from horror, for that matter. That mixed with some decent, at times, directing, and everything else sucking ass, I'd give it a 2 out of 5 stars. Because I give a 2 for things that I like a couple of very small things about, just enough to admire those things and really compliment them for a bad movie. That's what this is, a 2 out of 5 for me. Anyway, have you seen it? What do you think? Put your thoughts and comments down below again. God bless you guys. I will have a Scream 6 review up tomorrow. God willing, I'm alive and I see the film entirely before I get home, so on and so on, able to record it. I want to have a review for that, so I hope you'll enjoy that as well tomorrow or over the weekend or something. Anyway, God bless you guys. Goodbye.